Okay, so let's talk about it. How my story has evolved from pastor to priestess. Let's get into it. So I've shared a little bit about how my upbringing was. I grew up in a Christian church. I grew up in a Baptist church, a well-known Baptist church here in College Park. I went to Friendship Baptist Church under the leadership of Reverend Charles J. Sargent. He was a general, absolutely loved him growing up, and went to Christian school. I went to Old National Christian Academy, then Colonial Hills Christian School. So church for me, or Christianity for me, was everywhere, 7 days a week. My mom didn't play. Either you go to church or you don't do anything else. Now, I could do other stuff as long as I went to church on Sunday and Wednesday or whatever other night she had required. Then I could hang out with my friends and do the skating rink. So it was instilled in me. A lot of those belief systems were instilled in me. And I can remember around the age of, I guess I was about 12, when Creflo Dollar came to town and he was blowing up. Matter of fact, he bought the building that my elementary school was in. So that was super cool. But he started this whole speaking in tongues movement here, because at that point in time, just traditional Baptist Methodist, like some of the more laid back dogmas were around, and he came in with this fire baptism of the Holy Spirit, and it was like, I was intrigued. My mom didn't quite know much about it, but she was okay with me going to church with one of my friends over there at Creflo Church. So I would go over there, and I wanted to know, what is this speaking in tongues, and what is this Holy Spirit, what is this fire baptism all about? And I'm saying that to say that goes to show my inquisitive nature about understanding the spiritual aspect of life was always there, even as a child. Now, I had my gifts. I knew things. I always knew things. I knew when the phone was going to ring before it rang. I could think about things. All of us have that intuition. But mine was very heightened, and I believe my mom knew that. And so she was okay with me kind of figuring out what is going on and where this comes from. So fast forward, I live a regular teenage life, okay? I'm wilding out. Just get it. I'm from Atlanta, and so I lived the ATL girl life. It was cool, but I was smart. I was just naturally book smart. And so I got to get out of high school a year early. I go off to college. I have my regular college experience, and I ended up getting married after my sophomore year. I got married. I had my first daughter, and I remember thinking, I just want to be this good wife. And I felt like as long as I was going to church and I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, this marriage is going to work. Everything is going to be perfect. Life is going to be great, and so on. And so what I noticed in that relationship was, when me and him were doing good, I could be solid on these principles. Because the only reason why, truthfully, why I needed to get married so early is because the Bible said it's better to marry than to burn. And we were having sex, and we clearly weren't going to stop. And so therefore, let's just get married, because I had this conviction that I'm going to die and go to hell if I just keep on doing this over and over and over again, right? So hence, I got married very young. We're going to make it work. I'm going to just pray us through it, and God is going to do all these things to fix us and make this work and all this stuff. And then if he disappointed me, if he lied, if he cheated, if he did anything like that, that Scorpio in me would rise up and take over. So that part would be like, oh, nigga, you tried me, and now I got to show you who you playing with. And that cycle went on for the entire time, because what you're not gonna do is keep playing with me and I'm gonna let it slide. So that was just my battle with my own evolution, with my own spirituality. If our relationship was good, then I could stay in this Christian, these beliefs. And if we're not doing good, okay, well, now I'm gonna be really, really cold and show you who you playing with. And so that was just a story of my life. And at the end of that marriage, I remember sitting down and I was like, okay, I don't want to live like that anymore. I don't want anybody else to be able to say that my relationship with God is based on my relationship with them. I felt like he was an idol. So I'm still within, that belief system. And here I am, I was 25, 26 years old. And I was like, no, okay, God, he was an idol. I understand. I'm gonna get it together. So now I'm in ministry. And I was like, but I want to save Thug. And I'm going somewhere. I'm going to explain to you what this has to do with how I go from pastor to priestess. So I'm like, okay, I want to save Thug. And lo and behold, I got just that. The person that I married next was a minister at his church. I was a minister at my church. And we started off all the way wrong. he was involved in some other stuff. It was just not where it needed to start, but it did. And somehow I found a way to spiritualize this union, right? This is what God wanted. And however, I overlooked a lot of red flags. Excuse me, the red flags. I overlooked them. It was okay because I don't know. So it started off really, really interesting. But what I will say is when it first started, he was the one that introduced other things to me. He was like, hey, you know, there's this lady named Lilith. And I'm like, Lilith? Who is Lilith? And he was like, you know, there's some other books of the Bible, the lost books of the Bible, the book of Enoch. And he was telling me these things. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to hell. I'd have married the devil. Now, he was a fine devil, but I was like, I don't know what God is about to do with this. However, I started to do my own research and just different things came up. We were curious about Illuminati and just all these things that we were hearing outside, other terminology outside of the church lingo. And I was very curious as to what is this all about. And so I began to do the research. Now, at this time, he and I were married. We had our children, and we are pastoring. Like we're pastoring every Sunday morning. And he and I both were kind of rebels, even in the church. We were going to always push the envelope. Like, I don't think, you know, women have to wear dresses all the time. Like, or whatever, you know, whatever the strict version of it was, me and him were always going to be outside of the box. We're going to always just kind of be on the other side because it just didn't make sense. So we're pastoring. And I'm doing this other research and I'm looking up even etymology of words in the Bible. I'm looking at, okay, this word means this. Adultery actually does not just mean having another partner. Adultery actually means having another partner outside of the consent of your current partner. That's how in the whole Bible, everybody had multiple. Okay, so that's how everybody in the Bible had multiple partners. Okay, so anyway, I just began to study all of those things. I began to study the history, who wrote the book, where the book came from, when did it change, whose version was this, what the Council of Nicaea, and I just began to do all of this research. And the bottom line was I realized that there were so many other stories before the virgin birth of Jesus. There were so many other things that aligned, that felt more aligned and more true, more real for me than some of these stories. The thought of how much disconnect I have to have from common sense to believe that a person actually went into the belly of a whale, stayed there for 3 days, or that a man was in the den with some lions and the lions didn't eat him, didn't even harm him. Like the absolute lack of common sense that was needed for me to believe that just started going out the window. And I believe those things because as a child, you're programmed, like this is all that you're told. From preschool, you learn these stories. So it's kind of like you don't have to think, you don't need to understand it, you just got to believe it. You just got to, okay, this is what they said, this is what I was told, this is all I know, so I'm gonna stick to it. Even if I'm presented with information that makes more sense, that cognitive dissonance was real. And so it just it became overwhelming for me. And the control, the narcissism within the Christian church, within the church, it was just too much. It just became too much for me. And so stay tuned for part 2. I got you.